Okay, we're going to call the August 26th called meeting to order to cover the millage rate presentation or agenda item and also budget review. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We have the millage rate presentation.
Okay, here we go. Before the public hearing, I just wanted to provide just a short millage rate presentation regarding how we performed in the 2025 Tax Digest. Just to summarize the property tax process, it starts with the tax assessor's office, which is a county function. They assess property, they notify taxpayers of value changes, they review all the appeals, and they ensure that the appeal process proceeds properly. Then it goes to the municipalities and all the government entities, the city, the county, and the school board. They establish an annual budget, levy a millage rate to fund the budget. The last step is the tax commissioner, which is a county function. The tax commissioner will bill, collect, and distribute those tax proceeds collected. What's included in the digest? Well, you have different categories, one being real property, personal property, motor vehicles, mobile home, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. All of that is your gross digest, makes up your gross digest. You then have exemptions, which are deducted from your gross digest to come up to your net digest. Villarica's 2025 gross digest is $1.4 billion, with 51.5% being residential, 26.2% being industrial, 20.62% being commercial, and the other small portion of 1.68% is other, and that is made up of utility, motor vehicles, agriculture, conservation, mobile homes, timber, and heavy-duty equipment. How did our digest compare to last year's digest? You can see that the red bar is your 2025 digest for each of the categories, and your blue bar is your 2024. You can see that commercial had a positive change of 9.24%. Industrial increased 13.42%. Residential increased 4.81%. And your other smaller categories increased 5.14%. So we had a total increase in the gross digest of 7.86%. Our exemptions, which reduces our digest, also increased by 93.21%, and I'll discuss what that is later on in the presentation. So when you take the gross digest that we had, the increase of 7.86, but we also had exemptions that increased at 93.21%, you can see that our net digest only increased 1.02%. So as you know, Villarica is split between two different counties, Douglas and Carroll. We take each of these categories and let you know what the breakdown is. For commercial, 19% is Douglas, 81% in Carroll. Industrial, 41% in Douglas, 59% in Carroll. Residential, 50-50 split. Other category, 19% in Douglas and 81% in Carroll. So our gross digest of $1.4 billion, that's 41% in Douglas and 59% in Carroll. When you factor in the exemptions, which fall into 46% Douglas and 54% in Carroll, your net digest of $1.2 billion is about a 40-60 split, 40% being Douglas County and 60% being in Carroll County. We talk about the growth in the digest, and there's two types of growth in the digest. You have in the blue circle, that's your reassessment inflationary growth. And again, that's exactly what it is. It's just due to the reassessment of property. You add that to your yellow circle, which is your new growth and other changes. This is primarily due to new or improved property. And that becomes your total digest growth. You can see here that our digest growth regarding our 2024 value of a mill was 1.28 million. Our 2025 value of a mill is 1.220 million. And when we take each of those categories of inflationary growth / reassessment and new growth, you can see the third column where the blue arrow is. We had 2.6% of inflationary growth reassessment, which generates about $175,000 for the city of Villa Rica. We had negative growth, new growth, of 1.58%, which was a revenue loss for the city of Villa Rica of around $106,000. And we'll talk about what contributed to that. Again, breaking out our digest, looking at the growth of reassessment, inflationary growth, and the new growth, we broke it out by county. In Douglas County, you can see that we had about 1.34% of reassessment inflationary growth, but we had a negative 7.96% for new or other changes to the digest. Have an asterisk beside that because we wanted to point out what caused that for the 2025 digest. If you remember back in 2024, Southwire filed a Freeport exemption, but it arrived late to the Board of Assessors. It arrived late even after we set the millage rate. The whole county was experiencing mail delivery issues at that time with the new post office and everything. So they did file on time. It was postmarked on time, but it did not arrive at the Douglas County Board of Assessors office until later. Therefore, the exemption was implemented, and it negatively impacted the Douglas County side of our tax digest. So that is why you see that the overall digest is a negative 6.61 for Villa Rica on the Douglas County side. For the Carroll County side, the reassessment inflationary growth was 3.55%. The new and other growth was 3.28%, so the total was 6.83%. When you take that and you look at our total digest, then we ended up having a 2.6% inflationary growth, a negative 1.58% in new and other growth, and a total growth in the digest of 1.02%. You hear us talk about the rollback millage rate. As you know, state law requires the calculation of a rollback millage rate, and this just shows you how this is mathematically calculated. You take the inflationary growth for this current year, which is $31.3 million. You divide that by the net digest, which is $1.2 billion, and you multiply that by your prior year millage rate, which is 5.588. So you get a rollback equivalent of 0.144. When you reduce that, when you take that and reduce your 2024 millage of 5.588 minus 0.144, you get a 2025 millage rate rollback of total of 5.444. As you know, the impact of House Bill 581, in which the Villa Rica did opt in or chose not to opt out of, is a statewide floating homestead exemption. There is no inflation index rate for this year. That will begin next year in the 2026 digest. So the assessed value on a person's homestead, that is if that is your homestead, it will not change from 2024 to 2025. This is just a quick example using hypotheticals for 26, 27, and 28 just to kind of show you what or how the floating homestead exemption would work. 2024 is the base value that House Bill 581 says you go by. So we use the fair market value of a home of $200,000 just for easy math. The assessed value is at $80,000. Therefore, your taxable value is $80,000. The millage rate at 5.588. Taxes owed for the city of Villa Rica is $447. That would be like example from last year. Since there was no inflation index rate for this year at 0%, then keeping the millage rate the same, maintaining the millage rate, then the taxes within the city of Villa Rica would remain at $447 in this example, a 0% increase. But let's just say, hypothetically again, we just want to show you the impact of the floating, or how the floating homestead exemption would work. Let's say next year in 2026, the inflation index rate is announced and it's 3%. So your fair market value would be $206,000, and your assessed value would be $82,400. But let's say the actual Board of Assessors department actually assessed your value at 5% increase. So it was $210,000, meaning that your assessed value would be $84,000. What the floating homestead does is it makes your taxable value be what the 3% inflation index rate would be for that year, or what was announced that year, which would be hypothetically 3%. So you would get a floating homestead exemption of $1,600 to bring down your net taxable value to the $82,400, which is the same as the column that has the 3%. Applied with your millage rate, then you would pay $460, which would be a 3% increase. So why it's called floating is because each year your exemption goes up to help offset any any difference between what is announced as the inflation index rate and what the actual Board of Assessment or your assessment actually came in at. So we took it another year and said, okay, let's just say hypothetically the inflation index rate was 2%. So you would have a $210,120 fair market value, and your assessed value would be $84,048. Again, hypothetically, let's say your assessment actually came in at 10% more, so your fair market value was $231,000, with your assessed value being $92,400. Your then homestead exemption would increase. It would go from the $1,600 and it would go to $8,352 to bring your net taxable value back down to the $84,048, which is what the 2% inflation index rate is. So I won't go over the next year, but you kind of get how the floating exemption will increase and help you, or help the homestead owner be capped at the inflation index rate. Just in 2028, you can see if a 4% inflation index rate was announced, but your assessment was at 7%, then you see that your floating homestead exemption now goes up to $11,458. So 2026 was $1,600, then your floating homestead goes up to $8,352, then it goes back up again to $11,458. So that's just examples of how it's supposed to work when the inflation index rate will be implemented. I see you over there with your calculator. Recommendation. Staff is recommending 5.588 mills, which is maintaining the same millage as 2024. And hence not rolling back, which brings $170,000 in additional revenue to the city. While we're asking for this, as you know, we're in the middle of our fiscal year 2026 budget. We've talked about the tax allocation, the TAD fund. We have a debt service payment coming up of around $2 million, and we have only about $850,000 in last year's property tax revenues and what we estimate in receiving in this year's tax revenue. So the general fund is having to contribute $1,112,380 to fund this debt service payment. In addition to that, which that was one of the major reasons, in addition to that, we are seeing some rising costs of some of our operating expenditures, as well as we want to see funding for our public safety regarding officers and vehicles. We also pay Carroll County for fire services at $300,000. Really quick, these are just the advertisements that we're required by state to place in both the Douglas County Sentinel and the Times-Georgian. The one on the left is what's required. The one on the right is just explaining that while the amount of tax dollars that we're receiving from the digest, we're actually proposing that the millage rate be maintained and it's not being increased. This is the other required ad. It's called the Current 2025 Tax Digest and 5-Year History of Levy. And it takes each of those categories we've previously discussed and goes back to 2020 all the way to 2024, showing you the history and then showing you the current year and the impact to each of those categories. Where do your property taxes go? Again, because we're split between two different counties, it's a little bit different percentages for each county. When you pay your county taxes in Carroll County, 58% goes to the Board of Education, 22% goes to Carroll County, and 20% comes to Villarica. On the Douglas County side, when you pay your Douglas County taxes, around 47% goes to the Board of Education, 39% goes to Douglas County, and around 14% goes to the City of Villarica. This was the millage rate schedule. We're right here at the end. We had 2 public hearings last Tuesday at 10 and 6. We're required to have 3 public hearings. This is the presentation prior to the third and final public hearing that we will be having tonight. And then after the public hearing, that is when we would ask the mayor and council to adopt the millage rate. Any questions? Okay. I think Amanda's going to give her budget.
All right, we're going to begin the public hearing in regard to the millage rate topic. There is 10 minutes allowed for it, 10 minutes allowed against adopting the recommended millage rate, and 3 minutes per person. So we'll begin with those for adopting the proposed millage rate of 5.588. Is there anyone so there's no one to go with the proposed millage rate? Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the proposed millage rate, or alternative, a lower rate? You'd like a higher rate for the millage rate this time? This is the time to do that.
Good evening, council. What I would like to say about the millage rate, if it go up, if it stay down, of course I don't want it to go up, but whatever taxes that are received from the tax allocation district, we certainly hope that we can get something in our community. We've been paying into this tax allocation district for 2 years now, and we haven't received not a grain of dirt put in the neighborhood. We haven't received anything. So I'm just hoping that with paying some of the highest taxes into a tax allocation district that only our community is paying into, I hope that we can certainly receive something.
Anyone else that would like to speak during this 10-minute time limit?
Good evening. I am against raising any of the taxes due to the fact that I don't see anything that has been done in the area that I am representing, which is Ward 1. If there's supposed to be any increase, we should see some public benefit from our council. And I do understand that there are other areas in the community that has received some things that may benefit them. But from what I've been able to see in Ward 1 in the area that I represent, which is Dordan, Anderson, Claycorn, Ruby, Streets, McCullough Street, we are not seeing anything that benefits our community.
Anyone else? All right, we will move on to item 2. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to take a vote on the millage rate. That'd be a good idea before we move on to the budget. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution setting the millage rate the same as it is this year at 5.588.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I had some discussion.
Yes, discussion.
Sorry.
That's
I
all right.
I was going to say that I do know for the Douglas County residents that this is one of the things that stinks about being in two counties, and I totally understand that. But I believe I was told that Douglas County is raising their rate very high. They had a very contentious millage rate meeting this time, and they were wanting to raise it. So I'm just going to say, if I don't want to go all the way down, but if we could compromise, I would be open to that.
Does anybody have clarification on that? Because I didn't follow it real closely, but I thought it got shut down.
Oh,
by
yes,
the
it did. I'm sorry.
By the chairman.
I'm sorry, I look like an idiot. It did. I was talking to one of my friends in Douglas County, and he was saying that it was very, very contentious, and that yeah, I don't know why I even talked, y'all.
Well, no, just think about the people that are celebrating right now on the Douglas County side. So it was going to be very high from what I understand. It was
Yeah, it was
going
supposed to
to
be
be a
like a
big jump.
30% increase or something very high, but they didn't get the votes for it. But yes, I apologize, everybody. I do not know why I spoke. This was in my head today.
Atlanta traffic will do that.
Thank you, Leslie. I agree with that.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
That is unanimous.
All right, item 2, the FY 2026 budget review. We have a presentation prior to the hearing.
Good evening, Amanda Long, Interim Finance Director. We made a couple updates to this presentation, but I'm just going to run back through it. Every time. All right, our total proposed budget is $56.7 million. This beautiful pie chart shows how that's broken out. General fund 42%, water sewer 24%, east side TAD is 12.2%, debt service 7.8%, self-funded insurance is 4.6%, capital 3.5%, solid waste 3.5%, hotel motel 0.8%, stormwater 0.6%, and then other less than 0.1%. This is our total proposed budget, kind of further broken down, and we actually added a column because this was asked a couple times to show what our 2025 adopted budget was, and then the amended budget is what it's at now, and most of that change is due to rollover of POs or purchase orders from the prior year. And then any other budget amendments that we've brought before you and that you have approved this year. So then we compare that with what we're proposing for 2026, and you get your changes over there in the last two columns. The most significant is going to be the TAD debt service, which is increasing by 115%. And that is due to us no longer having the capitalized interest to pay those bonds. And so the general fund is going to have to make up that money. Total proposed budget 25 versus 2026 this is just kind of a graphic showing the same thing we just went through. The general fund is increasing 3%, water sewer is increasing 7%, and solid waste has a 4% increase. So revenues, a couple notes on revenues for the general fund. We're asking to maintain the millage rate at 5.588, and we are. A $220,000 increase in franchise tax revenue, a $265,000 increase in sales tax revenue, a $120,000 increase in insurance premium tax. Building permits are expected to stay the same for 2026. We've got a $210,000 increase in court fines, a $76,000 decrease in interest revenues because of falling interest rates, and a $118,000 increase in transfers in from the enterprise funds, and that's for services provided by like customer service for water, sewer, and sanitation. Revenues on the water sewer, we're not proposing a rate increase for 2026. Because we increased them so much in 2025 because of our rate increases, we're kind of going to use this year to assess all the changes made and see how we end up. We've got $1 million in additional water revenue due to growth and rate increases, $676,000 in additional sewer revenue for the same reasons, and then $531,000 increase in tap fees, or actually they're actually expected to decrease. All right, so budget improvement request, we ask each of the departments to let us know what they need and what they expect to kind of spend this year, so that we can assess what we can afford. So we had $3.96 million requested. We funded $2.13 million, which leaves $1.83 million unfunded. We further break that down by the general fund, the water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. The general fund has $1.7 million unfunded, solid waste $57,000. All right, so then we move on to expenditures. We have the $300,000 pilot payment for Carroll County, and that's for fire service. The bond payment for the Eastside TAD, $1.1 million is going to have to be funded by the general fund. We've included a $100,000 contingency. We think that may be needed partially for elections if a runoff is required. We've included $75,000 for economic development professional services. We've included $487,000 for 6 PD vehicles. So that's 4 new vehicles for new officers and then 2 replacement vehicles for aging. So we've got $55,000 included in the budget for a grant writer, hopefully to help us fund some of our projects that we have that are unfunded. $44,000 for replacement mowers and trailers, $105,000 to replace the basketball gym flooring at Gold Dust, $225,000 to replace the water lines on North Candler and West Gordon, and then $1.8 million in water purchases from Douglas and Carroll County, and that's an increase of $500,000 from last year. Personnel. Personnel expense is our biggest expense. It's going to be $16.7 million, which is a 3% increase from the prior year. The graphic over to the right kind of shows you how that's broken out. 81% is the general fund, 16% water and sewer, 2% solid waste, and 1% stormwater. The only personnel we're adding this year is going to be 4 new police officers due to growth. We are only funding them in this budget for a quarter of the year, and that we can do that because they're vacancies, and it's going to take until probably July of 2026 to fill those vacancies. So this budget does include a 2% cost of living adjustment for all employees, which is around $248,000. And then it also includes a $600 bonus for part-time and full-time employees. This is being funded, though, by the self-insurance fund, which has done really well. So we'll talk about that self-funded insurance. The self-funded insurance, the budget for it is estimated at 90% of maximum claims. The remaining 10%, which is about 200,000, is saving that remains in the fund. So our current cash balance is a little over 1.9 million. Breaking that budget out for the total 2.6 million, 706,000 is administrative fees, and 1.7 is your claims and wellness expenses. All right, so we move on to capital. So for the general fund capital that we've proposed in this budget, administration, we're adding a camera systems at the police department, Gold Dust, City Hall, and Powell Park for $35,000. Public safety is adding the 6 police vehicles for $487,000. Fleet maintenance, we're going to add some high velocity fans in the Avanti building for $30,000. And then a recovery machine for air conditioning repair for $10,000, and that should keep us from outsourcing a lot of the air conditioning repair in vehicles. Grounds maintenance, we're adding 2 zero-turn mowers for $35,000 and 2 landscape trailers for those. So the total general fund capital is $607,000. Water sewer, we're going to be adding water meters for new builds around $233,000. Replacement register meters for $70,000. We're proposing to add 2 Neptune R900 antennas and the software for those. And what that does is allow us to read almost in real time water usage for the properties covered by those antennas, and that has a cost of $65,000. Connors Road booster station generator for $80,000. The water plant facility safety and security improvements for $65,000. And then we've included $50,000 for replacement motors, drives, and pumps as that comes up. So total water capital is $563,000. So for sewer, we've included chemical storage tanks for $45,000, 2 Ford F-150 vehicles for $50,000 apiece. One is to replace a 2003 that has 189,000 miles, and then the other is to replace a wrecked one. They've asked for a pipe threading machine, and that will allow us to do a little bit more work in-house. And then we've included $100,000 for miscellaneous pump replacements. Total sewer capital is $260,000. Distribution and collection, the North Candler and West Gordon Street water line replacement, $225,000. And then we've included money for an F-450 truck that will replace one that has 192,000 miles. $85,000 for that truck. Total distribution and collection capital of $310,000. Stormwater, we're adding an excavator for them, which should reduce equipment rental by about $10,000. That excavator costs $28,000. So then we kind of total capital funded for 2026. Excluding SPLOST is 1.78, so that's everything I just went through. And then we'll talk about what we're going to fund with SPLOST here. 2015 Carroll SPLOST, the streets department is going to get a concrete grinder, which will allow us to even out those sidewalks and shave that down for ADA compliance and accessibility. 2016 Douglas SPLOST, we've added a 30 by 40 pole barn for Spring Lake for equipment storage. Traffic calming for $25,000 that's not specific to a project at this time. And then 4 vest-worn portable radios for public safety. 2021 Carroll SPLOST, Parks and Recreation, we're going to replace that basketball gym flooring at Gold Dust for $105,000. And then we also added $25,000 for traffic calming, and this will be used to do those speed tables on Thomas Dorsey and Eleanor Walk. 22 Douglas Spas. We're going to purchase a CID vehicle with this one for $31,000. So that gets us to debt service. We have the water sewer bonds, the 2022 bonds. In March, we'll have a principal payment of $1.6 million with a interest payment of $394,000 and then another interest payment in September of $370,000. So total debt service for water sewer is $2.4 million. And then the TAD bonds, total debt service for 2026 will be $1.96 million. Again, $1.1 million of that is going to be funded from the general fund. The rest will come from property tax collected from the TAD. That's it. Questions? So I was also going to mention, there were a couple items at the last public meeting that we needed to follow up on since they were brought up in a public meeting. I thought I would address those additionally here. We've already talked about the traffic calming. We had originally said we would do those speed tables with Douglas Sploss, but they're in Carroll. So we addressed that by moving them to Carroll Sploss. We were asked about the sick and vacation pay and the fact that we break that out on the expense piece, but we only budget for it under regular employees. So we kind of talked back and forth about this, and I think we're going to just leave it the way we have it now. And I think it helps us reconcile with the compensated absences and the new GASB guidance on that. So we were also asked about dues and fees for recreation events. I think that's on page 105. It increased from $725 to $3,000. So I have a list of what makes up that $3,000. It's VSA Arts of Georgia annual membership for $900. USA Gymnastics memberships for $450, Survey Monkey is $300, Adobe is $425, American Camp Association dues are $700, and then annual membership for GRPA for 3 employees is $180. So that brings you really within $5 of that $3,000. We were also asked about rental of equipment for the senior center. And so when I asked about that, we budget that each year just in case it is needed. We don't always use that. And so I think that's what we were seeing in this year is we haven't used it. But if they choose to do a longer trip, then we may want to rent a more reliable vehicle. So I think that was all my items. So.
Kind of like in your family, when you have a really old vehicle and you're going to take a long trip, you tend to take the one that is less likely to break down. Questions? And thank you, those clarifications, we also got those in email, so we have those in writing. Appreciate that. I was just going to mention on page 7 where it talks about budget improvement request, what was requested, what's funded, what's unfunded. It's kind of like when you do your household budget, right? You go, okay, this is what we want to do this year. We want to do this. Maybe we'll get a new car or carpet, or we'll try to take this vacation, but we got to pay for the roof and whatever all your expenses are. And that was our requested amount. But then it comes down to, okay, well, we may not bring in that much money this year, and we got to match it up with what we're going to bring in salaries for the family. So we call it, what are we not going to do out of all those things that we're requesting at our family? And we go, okay, well, maybe we don't do Disney and we go camping down the road. You know what I'm saying? You alter it to fit it on the money we're going to bring in. The good thing is I think y'all have been real conservative with trying to underestimate. Better to underestimate what you're going to bring than overestimate, and then you don't have the money, and that's when you end up in situations like some cities or counties have, where then they may have to bump the tax rate up a whole bunch to cover the money because it's already spent. So I appreciate what you all have done on that. And so the unfunded is basically, we're not going to do that, but the good side, last sentence, the good side is that if we do end up bringing in some additional income, we may very well be able to go back and fund some of those things that aren't funded. We're going to open this up for the public hearing. It'll work just like the last one, 10 minutes. But do know this, we are not voting on the budget tonight. That will be early in September. Is it the 9th? September 9th is when the budget will be voted on. So we'll do it just like the other one, 10 minutes. Yeah, I love your budget, it's great. Or, hey, maybe I just have an issue. I want to make sure y'all do this or that, or whatever it is that relates to the budget itself. We'll go with 10 minutes. I don't even know why we divide it, because not necessarily going to be for or against. We'll discuss it. Do we have to do it that way? Because somebody may have, it's not for or
The 10 minutes
against.
each side is actually how we conduct public hearings for zoning matters,
Yeah.
not necessarily public hearings for these type of matters. What I would suggest is just 3 minutes per person.
That's what
They
I'm
can speak
thinking, because-
whatever position there is. It doesn't have to be before or
Right.
against.
Because it may not even be a for or against, it may just be, I want to make sure this happens, or that y'all watch out for this. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the hearing for the budget itself, for that topic, 3 minutes a person. Floor is open. Going once? Going twice? Right, we will close the hearing on the budget.
I do have questions about the current budget that's being proposed for 2026 budget in regards to the East Side TAD. What I didn't see up there, and I seen it on the previous budget from, I believe, which would have probably been 2025, I don't see anything that show that you're putting money aside for our park. I don't see any money allocated for that. And I know that if you don't allocate money for something, then that usually means you don't have money for something, and that means you normally are not doing it. Now, I know we were told that there's some grant money or a total of money put aside for $80,000. But as we all know, based off of these prices that has been proposed for pickleball and all these other amenities at all these other parks, what I am not seeing is that how are you going to complete a whole park, cleaning the land, buying the items that are necessary for a park with $80,000. So I don't understand why, if we're in the TAD and the money is supposed to be put back for our infrastructure, and we're supposed to have grant money and some money from some other entities, why are we not budgeted? And so, again, this is the second year that I've been looking at a budget that don't include our things for our neighborhood. I didn't see anything for our infrastructure for Claycorn, Anderson, Darden, because we all know that there with the TAD, that was supposed to cover the infrastructure for our sewer and our water. I don't see it in the budget, so apparently it's not happening.
All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Drummond, we have an executive session. Would you read the cause for which we're going into executive session?
If we could get a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing the vote to enter into a contract to purchase, dispose of, lease property subject to approval in a subsequent public vote as provided in OCGA 50-14-3B1D.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right. We will return.
bring
I
it.
got somebody downstairs, I think, can invite. Hey, sir. How you doing? Good. I finished this book, I gotta go further.
Good.
We'll hear them if they come out.
When it's done.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to return to regular, out of executive
I
session.
move to return out
and
of
into
executive
regular.
session.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
You didn't have to tell me twice, Leslie.
Couldn't even get through the sentence. Mr. Drummond, would you,
All right, we did meet
Say
in the
what-
executive
okay.
session for the purposes stated before going in executive session. We had discussion but took no action.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.
Oh, all in favor of me. My bad.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Nobody qualified.
Sent me a text, reminded me, hey, don't forget to qualify. I was like, thanks, I appreciate it. Except for certain times. So yeah, I was kind of surprised, but.
All the heat.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I'm working on an official notification to you guys, but I don't have a timeline yet.
I'm assuming you'll take over.
David, it'll be back and it'll be me and David. So
Okay.
we get a tag team.
Is David ready to come back?
He says he will,
He looked a little excited about it, honestly.
and he's got time.
Yeah, I think so. Like he was just like, oh, I remember so and so. So I think he's a little excited to just.
He's left sitting in his seat, but his office, if you looked out my office, you look right into his office.
He's there.
So he gets drug into everything.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he does.
So,
If we have a question, it's like, well, David's done that before. Go ask him. So.
Hey, just want to say congratulations.
thank you.
Wonderful news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have a timeline yet. So
Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Well, we're gonna miss you, but very happy to hear from you.
All right. Yes. Hopefully it'll go on consent.
That'd be great.
I'll get you out to my sawmill sometime. Let you cut some lumber.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
you think I feel?
I don't have any walnut logs anywhere, but I do have some maple trees I need to saw.
Do you? Yeah. If you need a hand with any of that, let me know.